This is a teddy bear that is so dangerous it has to be locked up. This bear is located in England in Bolsover Castle, which was originally built in the 12th century. And one of the strangest things about this place is that inside of it, there was a bear named Mr. Ted that is said to be extremely cursed and haunted by something evil. Now, staff are so afraid of him, which is why he is locked in a glass case surrounded by chains, which is so weird to see because you'd never think someone would be like threatened by a teddy bear. Apparently, this bear is known to cause headaches and nausea to anyone that is standing near it. There are also numerous occasions where people have heard this bear growling at them. There was this one time a news crew was allowed to go to the castle to see this bear, and at 3 a.m. during the witching hour, all the cameras turned off, and the producer got so sick that he was taken to the hospital. So this bear does not play around.
Most heavily protected places on the planet, part 3. The Coca-Cola recipe. The original formula was made in 1886 by John Pemberton. The formula was kept secret. In 1925, the formula was put in a safe and was kept there until 2007. In 2007, it was transferred into a vault in the newly built World of Coca-Cola Museum. Only a few people have ever laid eyes on the secret formula. Even executives and workers at Coca-Cola aren't allowed to know the recipe. The ingredients come into the factory unlisted, although you know some ingredients because of the FDA requirements. But if you want to know the special ingredients, you have to get into the vault. These movie bloopers made the final cut. In Stranger Things, when 11 is fighting Billy, and then 11, who was played by Millie Bobby Brown, follows into Mike's arms. This was not scripted. She was just so physically and mentally tired that she practically collapsed. And you can see Finn, who plays Mike, look over at the directors to make sure she's okay. This made Donald Glover nervous. But when he got up and went to walk, his nerves got the better of him. He slipped and fell. He stayed in character and ran with the moment. And he continued with the scene perfect. In the movie 2049, where Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling both play special agents, they start fighting and it becomes a punching match. With the two characters trading blows and 79 out of 80 punches missing, Harrison Ford got carried away with one and actually hit Ryan Gosling. And in the final cut, you can see the exact moment where he hits him. And you can see both their actual reactions, which is pretty funny.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 1. When creating the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, they couldn't create skeletons that looked realistic enough, so they used real human skeletons. Since then, they've removed all but one. Ducks sometimes become cannibals due to boredom, meaning they kill and eat each other. This behavior begins as early as 4 weeks old. Crocodiles are capable of galloping, similar to a horse. Luckily, alligators cannot. And while we're at it, tarantulas can swim. It's extremely common after you die that there will be extreme gas buildup and you will burp after death. And sometimes dead bodies can even sit up on their own. Also, if a pregnant woman dies, the gas buildup in her body can actually forcefully push a baby out. In other words, a post-mortem baby bazooka. Hearing is the last bodily function to go after one dies. So it's very possible that the last thing you ever hear is the paramedic calling off your CPR.
Here are the most bizarre things that have ever happened at Disney World. There was a time where a couple tried to smuggle a baby onto Space Mountain. A couple was in line to ride Space Mountain when their duffel bag started to make noise, and the couple refused to open it. So the cast member called security, and when they opened the bag, they saw a 6-month baby inside of it. The baby was okay, but my goodness. People try to spread their loved ones' ashes in the Haunted Mansion. This actually happens way too often, and cast members have to try and stop it as much as they can. It causes the ride to shut down temporarily for an emergency ash cleanup. A husband made a very bizarre announcement at Cinderella's castle. The family of 4 came in for dinner, and about halfway through, the husband politely stands up and he announced that his wife of 15 years had been cheating on him. Wow. In 2007, Tigger punched a teenager in the face. Apparently the boy was messing with Tigger's costume and Tigger wanted him to stop and he didn't, and then punched him in the face. Okay, there are so many other bizarre things that happened. I will make a part 2.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 16. Kangaroos are absolutely terrifying, and if you mess with one, it will likely lure you into the water and attempt to drown you. There's an abandoned Disney park that you aren't allowed to go to, and it was shut down in 1999 because it was infested with free-roaming alligators. The animals were being abused, and an 11-year-old boy died from a flesh-eating bacteria found in the park's waters. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, the lion's costume was made out of a real skinned lion. This is the John Lawson house. No one knows who lives there, but every single day, there are several female mannequins sitting on the front porch wearing a variety of clothing. Their positions and outfits change daily, and many believe this is meant to convey some sort of message. And in 1871, a train crash took place just 200 feet away from the home, killing 22 people. And these mannequins are always pointing toward the crash.
The absolute worst ways people have died, part 3. A guy jumped in a boiling geyser to save his dog. When they pulled him out, he had 3rd-degree burns all over his body while he was still alive and conscious. Moments later he died watching his dog dying the same way. At the Grand Canyon, a woman jumped trying to commit suicide. She survived because she hit a ledge that wasn't quite far enough, and she had to crawl until she could find another edge to finish what she started.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, part 8. Pigs will eat literally anything. There are stories of pigs entering farmhouses and eating newborn babies. Speaking of babies, doctors believed that they didn't feel pain until 1987, so they would operate on newborns without anesthesia. Whistling was a way in which people would summon demons in ancient times. In 1968, every single TV in America shut down for 25 seconds, and there was a sound broadcasted on all of them that many believe was the devil's voice. People born deaf with schizophrenia often see disembodied hands signing them as opposed to hearing voices. A mysterious skeleton only 6 inches long was discovered outside a ghost town in Chile. It was declared to be human and lived for as long as 8 years.
Man-made diseases caught on tape. The death of Kim Jong-nam. He was the half-brother of Kim Jong-un, and supposedly Kim Jong-un killed him. One day at an airport, Kim Jong-nam was grabbed by a girl. He was walking around. A girl grabs him from behind and wipes oil on his forehead. Later, he complains to the airport staff about his forehead, pointing to it. They then bring him to a medical center. Later, there's video of him slumped in a chair, but I'm not going to show it on TikTok. He was pronounced dead in a span of 2 hours. This girl was later arrested that day for doing it. She was Vietnam, and she said she thought it was baby oil. She said men came up to her saying it was baby oil, and if she wiped it on somebody's head, she would become a YouTube star. The 2 girls were released, and it was believed that Kim Jong-un hired them YouTube guys. The oil was VX nerve agent. It's an extremely toxic synthetic that was made by humans for biowarfare. Basically, a disease made for war. Like this video if you want a part 2.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, part 11. And make sure to watch till the end of the video because the last fact will be from this game called I Wish I Didn't Know. Right now, in your bed are between 100,000 to 10 million dust mites. And if this isn't bad enough, they feast on skin flakes. An octopus is so flexible that it's capable of entering through your mouth, traveling through your digestive tract, and coming out through your asshole. There are over 200 dead bodies on Mount Everest, and they're used as checkpoints by climbers. If you die inside of your house, it's very common that your pet is going to want to eat you. You wouldn't do that, would you? Neil Armstrong's footprints on the moon don't match up with the ones on his astronaut suit. And the craziest one, the natural vanilla, strawberry, and raspberry flavoring actually comes from a beaver's anal gland. Jesus Christ.
What happens if you wake up during surgery? In 2008, Donna Penner was booked in for an exploratory laparoscopy at her local hospital. It should have been a routine procedure, but for some reason, the general anesthetic failed. With her body still paralyzed by the anesthetic drugs, Donna was unable to signal that anything was wrong. Over the next 90 minutes, she was forced to feel horrific pain as the doctor made the incisions on her body and moved around her internal organs.
These are things that you do not want to know. Part 1. On average, a solar storm happens every 150 years, and the last time a solar storm happened was 155 years ago. So that means we are overdue. After you die, your brain will still be active for about 7 minutes, so you will know when you die. Spiders usually travel in groups, so if you see a spider in your room, there's probably a few more. And for the last one, if you're not following me, this will be in your closet tonight.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, part 19. Facebook was forced to shut down 2 artificial intelligence robots named Alice and Bob because they started communicating with one another in their own language. If you ever win the lottery, you're 120 times more likely to be killed by an immediate family member. A sloth has nipples in its armpits. In the 17th century, there was a man named Tare who could eat his entire body weight in just one sitting. And despite being pretty skinny, he would swallow live animals, eat human corpses, and was even accused of eating the body of a 3-year-old toddler. An 11-year-old boy named Konarak escaped Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment but was later returned to Dahmer by police, and he killed the boy just 30 minutes after. It's commonly believed in religion that angels look like this, but according to the Bible, they actually look like this.
Creepy Facts, Part 64. The first person to have ever received a face transplant was 9-year-old Sandeep Kaur in 1994. Sandeep required this surgery after her hair was caught in a thresher, ripping off her entire face. Her parents actually arrived at the hospital carrying her severed face in a plastic bag. And if you're brave enough, there are pictures.
Here are some true and creepy late-night drive-thru stories. The first story is about a woman who worked at a Dairy Queen, and during one of her shifts after the sun went down, this lady had ordered 5 ice cream cones. Well, when she pulled around to the window, she saw that the woman had 4 dolls buckled into the back seat. And as she was handed the ice cream, she would lean back and give one to each doll. She acted like it was totally normal, said thank you, and drove away. The next story is about a man who worked the night shift at McDonald's, and he always had this regular customer who was a little bit odd. He had a huge beard and was always wearing a Hawaiian button-up shirt. And he always had a fake skeleton wearing a hat in his passenger seat. He would dress it up differently every single day and would never say anything about it. There was another man who worked the night shift at Taco Bell, and one night around 11 p.m. he saw this man dressed in a black cloak that would walk up to the drive-thru speakers and would stare at the camera for 10 minutes straight before walking away. So the people who worked there started calling this guy the Mannequin Man.
Fun fact of the day. On April 11th, 1954, nothing happened. No, literally, no major events were recorded in history. It was the most incredibly boring day in history, until people noticed. Then it became interesting for being boring.
Warning, the story you're about to hear might give you nightmares for your entire life. This is June and Jennifer Gibbons, otherwise known as the Silent Twins. They were both born on April 11th, 1963, and for their entire lives, they refused to talk to anyone except for each other. As kids, they even made up their own language so that no one else would understand them. And they did a bunch of really weird stuff, like one twin was not allowed to do anything until the other one was awake. They also took turns eating, so one twin would eat one day and the other one would starve. As they got older, they started committing crimes together, like robbery, lighting things on fire, and even trying to kill each other. Eventually, they were both admitted to a psychiatric unit, and that's when Jennifer spoke to somebody other than her sister for the first time in her life. All she said was, "We have decided that I must die." Sure enough, the very next day, she died from heart complications despite never having health problems before.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 18. A man from Queens once spent 5 months in jail completely unaware that his bail was just $2. Since spiders molt, when you see what you might think is a dead spider, it could just be that the spider left behind its exoskeleton and is now bigger than before. Dr. Seuss cheated on his wife while she had cancer, and then she proceeded to commit suicide. Almost everyone on Earth is walking around with a bunch of poop inside of them. Scientists accidentally killed the world's oldest living animal, which was a clam that lived to be 507 years old. Statistically speaking, at least one person who comments on this video will not be alive tomorrow. The real reason you shouldn't eat raw cookie dough isn't because of getting sick from eating raw eggs. It's because you shouldn't eat raw flour, which contains fecal matter from all the birds flying over the field and pooping on the wheat.
Have you ever heard the sad stories of the missing milk carton kids? Back in the 80s, missing kids' faces started to appear on milk cartons all over the US. They thought this would be the most effective because people used milk on the daily. Eaton Patz was the first child to appear on the side of a milk carton. He disappeared in Manhattan in 1979 when he walked to the school bus stop alone for the first time. And although the bus was only 2 blocks from his house, he never boarded it, and he was 6 years old at the time. Then there was Johnny Gosch, who went missing on his usual paper newspaper run on September 5th, 1982. His parents realized something was wrong quite early on after receiving calls from neighbors that their newspapers were late. And despite his delivery wagon being found less than 2 blocks away from his house, he was never found. I go into way more details on these cases on my YouTube channel, and I also talked about more missing milk carton kids. But they stopped putting faces on milk cartons once Amber Alerts were a thing. Here are some of the creepiest things that kids have said to their babysitters. There was a girl who was watching TV with one of the kids that she babysat, and all of a sudden he shut off the TV and whipped his head around to stare at the wall behind him. He stared for a solid 3 minutes and then whispered, "Not now," and then turned back around, kept watching TV. A couple minutes later, he turned back around to look at the wall and said, "I said not now. I'll see you later, okay?" The babysitter said she was so freaked out. There's another story about this babysitter who was looking through one of her old yearbooks with a 5-year-old boy. The boy suddenly pointed to one of the photos and he said, "That looks just like Nicholas." When the babysitter asked who Nicholas was, he said, "Oh, it's the boy in my closet," and just said it so casually like it wasn't wrong. I'll make a part 2.
Here's why you should never go on the world's tallest water slide. In 2014, in Kansas City, the world's tallest water slide, the Verricht, was opened at Schlitterbahn Water Park. The Verricht has a 168-foot drop, which then shoots you up a rise on the slide and then descends another 50 feet into a pool. The combined speed of the 17-story drop and the water jets caused the ride to have a 400-pound weight requirement to keep it from going airborne. In 2016, 10-year-old Caleb Schwab was planning to ride the Verricht with his 12-year-old brother Nathan. Due to the weight requirements, the two were separated, and Nathan went first while his brother Caleb was seated with 2 older women. But witnesses reported that their weight did not meet the requirements. At some point after the 168-foot drop, Caleb was thrown from the ride and hit one of the metal rings supporting it at nearly 70 miles an hour. Reports say that the 10-year-old had a fatal neck injury and was decapitated, while his 12-year-old brother witnessed the incident and screamed hysterically. Days later, the park announced that the ride was closed and was scheduled for demolition.
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know, part 10. It has been said that in some cases, if you hear ringing in your ear, it could be signs of a dead family member trying to contact you. Hey, Grandma. Many statistics have shown that blue-eyed people are more likely to suffer from alcoholism and depression than anyone else. You've got to be kidding me. There have been some cases reported of doctors selling their patients' blood on the dark web. Number 1, why would a doctor need to make any more extra money? Number 2, why are you selling a patient's blood on the dark web? One time, a lady found toenails in her chicken nuggets at McDonald's. There's a reason I don't eat McDonald's. 4 actors from The Poltergeist died shortly after the filming of the movie because they thought there was a hanging curse over the movie that caused them to die.